We'll call this meeting to order. I'm Charlie Gazik, Chair of the Newcastle Planning Commission, and this is the Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. We will begin with a flag salute. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Sorry. Commissioner Marish?
Marsh, here.
Marsh, sorry.
It's okay.
Commissioner Quigg?
Commissioner Quigg let me know that he was
Okay.
going to be absent tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is out of, we don't have an Utterback anymore. Then it would be Commissioner Danzler. Here. Commissioner Lowe? Commissioner Van Etta? Chair Kadzik?
Here.
And Vice Chair Kennard.
Present.
Thank you.
And if there's no objection, we will note that Commissioner Quigg is excused. Next item is the agenda approval. Are there any changes to the agenda? I'm seeing people nod no, so we'll consider the agenda approved. We will now open our public comment period. Would anyone who would like to make a comment please step to the podium and introduce yourself?
Hi. Good evening. My name is Carol Simpson. I'm a resident of the Olympus neighborhood. I moved to Newcastle in late 1998. While my home was under construction, I lived at the Newport Crossing Apartments. So I have experience in living in downtown Newcastle, and then moved into our new home, and we've lived there ever since. In 1999, I joined the Planning Commission and served 2 terms until 2007, when I ran for City Council and was elected in 2007. 2008, I served from 2008 until 2019, I served 3 terms on the City Council. I've been through several annual amendments to the comp plan, and I think if I recall correctly, one major update as a planning commissioner and possibly another major update to the comprehensive plan as a City Council member. The Growth Management Act used to require that the comp plans go through a major review every 7 years. Now that has been extended to 10 years. So even though it's been talked about that you're doing a 2-year update, that's a little bit misleading because you're spending 2 years to update the plan, but the update is to last for 10 years. So we as citizens of Newcastle will not be able to take a deep dive into our vision, goals, and policies contained in this comp plan for another 10 years. And to emphasize how long that is, today's my birthday. I'm here with you because I think this effort is that important. I'm 73 years old today. I will not be able to have another opportunity to weigh in this deeply into our goals and policies of our city until I'm 83, if I'm 83 and still living in Newcastle. But I like to think I have a vision like you all who are sitting here and volunteering for your city, that the trees we plant today, although we may not be able to sit under their shade, the future residents of Newcastle will. And I hope you all have that kind of vision and investment for the long range of our community, that you're willing to plant those trees and those policies and goals so that our future residents can enjoy those.
Thank you. And if I might hazard a prediction, I think if you're living in Newcastle when you turn 83, you're going to be here when you turn 83. It's time for commissioner comments. Would any commissioners like to make a comment? I'll just let you jump in. Well, we'll start with Vice Chair Kennard, since I saw him raise his hand.
I'd just like to say happy birthday, Carol. And thank you for all the work that you put into in your memo. I read it front to back, and we'll take it into account as we go about our efforts here to make Newcastle a better place to live. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Carol, for your comments and your input. I wanted to give a short update. I realized I failed to mention at the last couple of meetings that I've been attending the Economic and Community Development Council committee meetings. When I first heard that that committee was being pulled together a few months ago, I raised my hand and said I'd love to stop by and be a part of them, and so I've been doing that. They're great. They're council members, staff, Chamber of Commerce, a business owner, just discussing various topics. So if anyone wants to hear more, don't hesitate to contact me.
I see no other commissioners raising their hands, so we'll move to the reports. The chair does not have a report, so we'll ask Community Development Director Hoffman for his report, if he has one.
Thank you, Chair. 3 short updates for you tonight. First one is Commissioner reappointments. Mayor Newing is glad to reappoint 2 commissioners on July 18th. And just wanted to forewarn you, Mr. Quig's not here tonight, but I just wanted to let you know the timeline and process and that it's in the works. If you see it on an agenda, that's what it is. And thank you for your service. Second one is the Commerce Grant deliverables as it relates to tonight's items, Comp Plan periodic update. As you know, Commerce has a different fiscal year than the rest of us. And our primary grant for this periodic update is divided into 2 fiscal years for Commerce. Friday is the deadline for fiscal year 2023 deliverables. We're 1 deliverable away in the next day or so from achieving that and getting our funding. And it just relies on the public participation plan and the, let me get my acronyms right, Commerce pre-checklist, things like that, the RFP, the contract. So it's pretty straightforward, and we will enter into a new contract in the next 3 weeks or so that'll fund this coming fiscal year into a draft comprehensive plan in 2024. The other grant is the missing middle housing done by Aaron, and which materials are included in your agenda. Those deliverables will be at Commerce by Friday, and that'll fulfill that grant and we'll get full funding. So thank you for all of your efforts. It's good to be at this point. The last update I have is an item that you'll be seeing soon. We contracted for small cell wireless code updates. Daniel Kenny and I met last week and went through a preliminary draft. I haven't had time to review it, but I'll review it in July, see where we go. What I've seen so far and discussed with him is it's actually more than we asked for. And so the timeline I anticipate is first look at Planning Commission in draft form, maybe at your August meeting. And when I say more than what we asked for, the scope is related to small cell, not macro, not, towers. We have existing code for that. But in looking at small cell and our processes, there's several other areas such as franchise agreements, contracts, templates, and also the modification type language that our code doesn't have. As far back as the Middle Class Tax Relief Act that they snuck the substantial change language in. We're hoping to include that into our code along with small cell language and be comprehensive. What it may also lead to is some suggestions for what we already have for macro. And so while we're focused on small cell, we're always looking to improve everything else. So as our eyes catch suggestions or modifications or modernizing that code, that may be additional work that we work with Daniel on and incorporate into the code. So if we take a look in August, then the timeline will be up to you. His perception as a professional is small cell is not as urgent as everyone worried it was for a variety of reasons. Will it still come? Absolutely. Should we have code? Absolutely. But there's no time pressure, an applicant imminently walking in the door. So if we finish that work effort in 2023, we're right on track. So those are my updates, unless you have any individual questions.
I have a question. The public participation plan, you said you're filing with the Department of Commerce? Did I hear that correctly?
Correct. That's deliverable number 3 on our periodic grant.
And is that the same as this document I'm holding up, that is the public participation plan for the city of Newcastle?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's still a draft. Can I give you some minor comments and have them included?
Well, the deliverable on the scope was done at a time where the actual deliverable is a draft public participation plan. We've gone beyond that. We've also delivered that to city council. Doesn't mean we can't amend it. Doesn't even mean that we have to take draft off of it. It's our document and our tool. But in theory, back when it was just draft and at this setting, we could have submitted it and gotten full funding. So the detail of any changes like that would be beyond what Commerce is looking at.
Yeah, so
Just that we have one is essentially the threshold.
But we can make changes after it goes to them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't adopted by resolution by the city council. So you have that flexibility as may be needed. We want this to be a somewhat fluid or flexible process to be inclusive.
Okay, I'll just pass this on to you after the meeting. It'll just make it a little bit better as a standalone plan for the public when at some point it's handed out to the public. Okay. Any other questions for Director Hoffman? All right. There are no public hearings scheduled for tonight, so we will move on to general business. And the first item of general business is a discussion of the upcoming city events and the roles that we, the planning commissioners, can play at those events to receive public input on the comprehensive plan. So the events that we're talking about are the fireworks, the concerts in the park, Newcastle Days, I believe, is one of them, Newcastle Arts Fair. So there'll be residents turning out for those, and it'd be ideal, to the extent that we have the bandwidth, to have someone there just to reach out and talk to folks. And the role that we would have at these events is primarily just to listen and engage. And because we don't get that many opportunities to talk to citizens other than the people that we're immediately, our next door neighbors or our friends who happen to live in Newcastle. This is a great opportunity for us to widen the circle of people that we can listen to. There are a couple of tools that could help us do that, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But the role, again, is just listening. There's no record keeping that we're going to be asking of you, although later on in your role as a person who has taken responsibility for one of the plan elements, I'll be asking you to report back to the commission everything that you've heard. And not necessarily in a big formal report, but since you're going to become sort of an expert on that section, you're going to be the one who, I'm going to pass on my comments to you if it's a section that I hear about that is one of yours, and I would imagine we'll all do that. So at some point, we'll want to hear what you heard, and so that would be part of the role. The two tools that I mentioned, one of them is a handout, just a very short thing, and there was a copy included in your packet that is just meant to get people thinking about it, to give them just enough information to talk about subjects that are relevant to the comprehensive plan. It's not meant to describe the comprehensive planning process. It's not meant for them to give us specific feedback on, item 6.7.5 in the plan. It is to kind of give them a blank slate to say, what are you concerned about that might involve the plan? And so there were some questions that I proposed that could generate conversation, and I welcome your input if you have comments on those questions, if you think we can make them better. I've heard from one of our commissioners already who gave some real thought to it. So that's one thing that would be available that you could hand to somebody, you know, they could look at briefly if they were interested to see what it is, you know, to help prime them to have a conversation. The other is an idea that came from one of our consultants, the penny poll. And there was a description of that also in our packet, but I took that a step further, and I'm going to hand out something to you to give you a more visual about how that would look. So if you would just pass this down, and then Paul, if you would pass a copy to Mark and Aaron too, because they haven't seen it. So this penny poll, and for anybody who might be participating online, this would be an activity that a citizen could do at a table at one of these public events. And you know, picture there would be a sign saying, "Take the penny poll. What should the city of Newcastle Where should the city of Newcastle allocate its energies and resources? Below are 8 topics which will likely influence the comprehensive plan's direction. How would you spend our limited resources on them?" And we'd give the person that we're talking to 8 pennies, and there'd be 8 jars in front of them, and each one would be labeled. And the labels are Newcastle identity, abundant parking, interconnected trails, traffic congestion relief, walkable downtown, attainable housing, jobs/housing balance, and civic engagement, and there's a description of what each of those mean. So people would be given 8 pennies, and they could drop a penny into each of those jars, or they could drop 8 onto traffic congestion relief, which is where I think a lot of those pennies will go. At the end of the event, we'd have 8 jars with varying amounts of pennies, and I think I did some research. We could buy a $15 scale from online and weigh those jars, and then keep track of the weights, and then dump those pennies, and at the next event do the same thing. And at the end, we would have a record of what that informal poll would be like. So that's something that could be fun, could be right there on the table. Those are 2 things that could make that role more interesting and engaging for you and for the people that come by the tent. So let me stop there and just see what questions you have about this.
No questions. I do like the penny poll idea.
I actually also like the penny poll idea. In terms of the different events, I've seen them like, it's the Community Activities Commission sometimes has a table, and it's just it's a tent with a table, and they're just standing there. I would like something more. I mean, like a poster or something to, I don't know, glitter or something to draw people in. Because just a person or 2 standing at a table, and especially at the concerts, because once the music gets going, everybody's like looking at the band and sitting on a blanket. So I don't know if we have time to do that, but it'd be nice to construct something to like some sort of display.
From what I understand, there's just going to be one city tent, one city awning, and we would share that space. We could change that. There'd be more work, but we could change that.
Oh, I think sharing is fine. It's just, we just need something to be like, walk over here.
Do you have any visuals of like a map of Newcastle, a large one, or anything like that that would be appropriate for bringing outside, or not really?
Yeah, well, we definitely could get some. We have several maps of the city, so if there was something, we could plot them out and spray mount them on poster board.
We could have some, the question on that handout was something about, give us your thoughts about Newcastle's future. We could have a short question like that blown up large and put that as a way to maybe draw people in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, something like that. Just something. I think it was just, I don't know, does the tent even say? Oh, does the tent even say City of Newcastle? I can't even remember.
But we about a week ago, it's getting late, we better ask this question. All 3 meetings I've been in where I intended to ask that question of Public Works, to the very least, cancel out, we have nothing. So when we go buy something, we don't discover, wow, we could have just used that. I haven't gotten to it, but we have resources. So whether it's a tent, a table, a chair, a banner,
Yeah.
we can do it. We have the resources. If we use it frequently, we don't need to rely on one. It's just that logistics. This week would have been tough because we're just dealing with so much. We didn't get that answer cleared in time for this weekend, but for this series of events, that we could put something like that together that is inviting, attractive, curious, so they know you're not just standing there with a petition or, something like that. So we're open to ideas.
And if I can segue from that just a little bit, I wanted to give you an update that as we're talking about this, the Newcastle Arts Fair, we would not be able to put a tent up. We would get a smaller space, just a table. So just something to think about while we're putting the schedule together.
If I can chime in, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate the work that went into both the thoughtful materials on the penny poll and also the handout, the one sheet. I do have one suggestion on the one sheet. Could we reference here opportunities for people to come and join us, the fourth Wednesday of every month, or drive people to website opportunities or things like that? Just people may not think about something in the moment when they're talking with us, or may be reluctant in a certain forum to share their thoughts, but it would be nice to be able to give them a variety of.
Yeah, that'd be a great add.
Thank you.
I also would like to add a comment. I like the idea on the penny poll. Are we also thinking of collecting more topics than the one listed here?
That's a great question. These are the topics that were suggested by the consultant, but we could change,
No, not to put a specific more jars, just like a place can collect feedback, like any additional topics you want to discuss or you want to be considered, and people can put that comment, like a comment box in that jar. I'm just, I don't know yet. I'm pretty sure there are more than those 8 topics. Yeah.
something if they have thoughts that aren't part of the 8 topics.
Yeah.
Good question. I'm sure there's a way. Is there a way that would be easy? That's the question, and Aaron.
One thought of that is that there will be a survey, and perhaps that will be an opportunity for some comment when the survey is done.
To clarify, there's more than 9 topics, and then it just gets unwieldy for somebody to put a penny and consider 20 things on their way to a concert. But if you mean like an overflow and you have time, can you please write this down and we'll collect it? Absolutely. Pen, box, paper, and then they could write it out specifically. Because the penny poll is not intended to be the only exercise. It just adds a little bit of structure, gives people an idea of what this process is and prioritization, but it's also the interaction and the feedback you get verbally. And if we also have a resource where they could write things down or a handout or get it to us later, in addition to the survey, I think that would be very inclusive.
Hey, two thoughts. If we had business cards, you could say, here, take my card and just send me an email with your thoughts. Might get better feedback that way than, writing on a note. Or, I don't know if we have like a planning commission at the city, like a general inbox. I don't know if we have that, but, print up cards with that address and hand it out. And the same thing, I'd put it on maybe the sheet too, right? Like, come to a meeting, email us, here's my card, whatever, just to get the info out.
There is an alias, and
Oh,
we
there
could
is?
yeah, and we could use something like Vistaprint or other if you need materials. Sure.
Okay.
Aaron, what about business cards?
I think we could do that. I don't think they would. It takes a long time to get the city official business cards, but we could probably take that design and get it printed somewhere else quicker, just so you make sure you have something to hand out. And we could, if you want it to be a different size too, more like an index card or something, so they don't lose it. We could do that too.
I thought I had a hand scribbled note somewhere here about name tags.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron reached out by email asking if people wanted name tags, right? Yeah. I think we should just, I think I'm the only one who has one. I don't know, you have one?
I got
Okay, so I think we should just go ahead and make them for the other commissioners.
I don't mind people, contacting and emailing, but if we have a date set for our larger meeting that's going to be led by the consultant in the fall, if we could advertise that on anything written down, so there's a little bit of momentum building for that, because that's going to be nice and organized and captured well, in addition to any ad hoc stuff.
Well, we might have that date, or be very close to it, because we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Unless I hear other comment, I'll assume that the topics that are, these 8 topics are okay the way they are. The only comment I had, or thought I had about these 8 was that the traffic congestion relief one, I'm afraid that everybody's going to think Coal Creek, and that's the one thing we really don't have any control over. So it's almost like a wasted vote, or it's raising expectations for something that we can't deliver on those expectations. So, and I don't think we can take it off there. I don't think we can remove it, but I think maybe when we did this final description, I might add something to the effect that, and we can't do much about Coal Creek.
A lot of feedback already about 116.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaker?
Sorry, it could also include something like traffic calming.
Mm-hmm.
So we hear a lot of complaints about speeding on 116 as well.
I think that might be more appropriate than congestion. I don't experience much congestion. I live on 116th, but I do see a lot more traffic since those 2 interchanges went under construction. But I think in general, there's a lot of traffic on 116th, and so there could be some traffic calming measures introduced, in my opinion.
So we'll do some work on that description. So it's not just all on peak hour traffic congestion. Okay, so there was a sign-up sheet that went out in your packet, but I've got one that's already got some names on it. I'm going to pass this down and just have you add your name where you think you can volunteer.
Before you hand that down, it occurred to me that when I was looking at this at home, that one of the concert dates that we're asking somebody to be at actually conflicts with, I think, one of our meetings. Because I think these are all Wednesday concerts, so I don't know if we want to maybe skip that one, or how we want to manage that, or if we want to.
Does it say July 26th on there?
Yeah, it's the first concert.
Oh, okay,
I
well,
think I signed up for it too, so.
so let's not sign up for that one.
We can check. Obviously, we'll be here, in our regular setting. One element of this is that the consultant is going to be in and out of town and available. We're not sure which event he can attend, but he did indicate some of these he wants to be at. So it would be awfully lucky if that were one. Then you could do your regular business. He could be here on the 26th. I'm just not sure we can accommodate that, but I'll ask.
Well, can we move the July meeting? It's 7.
I can't remember. It seems like we've done that in the past, but my memory of it is vague.
Good evening, Commissioners. If it's the will of the commission to set a new meeting date and time, it would be a motion second vote, majority vote, and then me as a city clerk, I would publicly notice that new meeting date and notice it, put it on the website, and then it would be a legal meeting for the OPMA. So if it's the will of the commission to move the meeting, get a second, and then a majority vote, then that would be the new date and time.
All right, so we have that as an option. If the consultant were in town, he would want to, on that event, he would go to that event, presumably. He wouldn't be here at the meeting, so it seems like there's no reason not to switch that meeting. Do you agree, commissioners? Maybe we can make it the Thursday. I know there's other meetings that go on. There might be one on Thursday, and there might be one on Tuesday. But maybe while we're talking about this, the city clerk can look at the calendar and see what options are available to us.
I'm not aware of any conflicts, other than your availability and vacations and so forth. And if we advertised it as a special meeting and we're the same week, it wouldn't create any chaos or confusion. We're not altogether sure we're going to have items, but I would assume we're having a meeting, given the pace and the importance of what we're working on.
We could just start early, like at 5:30, and then it'll be over by the time the concert starts.
Yeah, the same process would apply.
So apply
Motion
with the
second
time
vote of
change.
just a new time change. And then that will be set on the agenda and set in the notice that goes to the public. As far as the month of July, your meeting is the 28th, which is a Wednesday, and we have no city events on the 27th or 29th. So if you wanted to change the day, that's another option.
The 28th or the 26th? I thought it was the 26th.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, you have to hit go to change the date to July in the calendar online. Yes, it is the 26th. And there is no events on the 25th or 27th.
Okay, so what's your pleasure, commissioners? Do you want to start earlier and then keep it on the same day, or make it a different day?
I could go on the 27th, or I could go early.
I can go early. I will not be available on 27th.
I could go either way. It's wherever we get the most
I
commissioners.
already emailed you, I'm out all week, out of town.
I can either go earlier or either of those other days.
Let's go early then. Okay. 5:30, is that early enough?
It is, if we focus on having about an hour and getting out of here in time that you can go and we have it set up, we can also promise to get you any materials early. You can do all the preparation and then come and have a quick working meeting and then move on and consider that night your planning commission duty. All in one night, if that works. 5 is a bit early, commuting and so forth, but 5:30 to 6:30, I think we can get whatever we need to get done.
Okay, let's do 5:30. We need a motion to that effect.
I move that next month's planning commission meeting on July 26th be moved to 5:30 to start, to accommodate having planning commissioners join at the concert.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan assignments. So, the idea here is that each of us would take responsibility for one of 7 of the elements in the plan. There's actually 8, but one of the elements in the plan is amendment process, and so we'll leave that one off our table. The role would be for the commissioner to become thoroughly familiar with that section of the comprehensive plan, to be particularly attentive to comments about that section of the plan, and at some point to report back to the commission what they heard. So I'm not envisioning that you have to keep detailed records and you have to come back with transcripts or anything, but you're going to be out there listening. Just come back and let's find out what you heard. I've heard that it's possible there could be additional meetings on different elements of the plan with members of the public. That you could be called into a meeting about transportation or something like that. But primarily, it's to just have each of us focus on something, become somewhat expert about it, and then be more knowledgeable as we receive that feedback, and then we can bring that feedback back to the full commission as we make our recommendations about the comprehensive plan. I guess the role could evolve into something more, but we'll just have to see what happens. I propose that we assign these in order of seniority. So the most senior commissioner would get the first pick. However, that's me, and I will take the last pick. I'll just take whatever is left over. Any questions about that role to start with? Okay. Anybody have a better idea about how to assign these other than seniority? Okay. The 7 elements are land use, housing, transportation, parks, trails, and recreation, that's one element, economic development, utilities, and capital facilities. And our most senior member after me is Vice Chair Kennard. Do you have one of those elements that you would like to make yours?
Sure, I'll do parks, trails, and recreation.
All right. Next most senior is Commissioner Van Atta.
So I'm reading the summary real quick in the actual code. I'll do economic development.
Okay.
And I will say that unless you wanted that, Amy, because you're on the committee. Okay.
You're allowed to do trades afterwards if you if you want to continue to negotiate. Next is Commissioner Marsh. Actually, Commissioner Quigg is going to get the leftover, so, because he's not here.
Yeah.
Commissioner Marsh.
No, I think I'll volunteer for land use. I said land use.
Commissioner Lowe, you're next. Commissioner Lowe chooses transportation. And then Commissioner Dantzler.
Well, I'm going to leave housing for you, so I'll go with capital facilities.
Okay. Okay, so that leaves utilities and housing. I will give Jim a call and see which one he wants, and I'll take whatever's left over. Either one would be quite fun. And I worked in the utility industry for about 20 years, so that wouldn't be a bad fit for me. All right, thank you for that. I think that winds up that particular topic on this. The next item is the Public Outreach Vision Workshop, which is what was alluded to a few minutes ago. Basically the town hall meeting for the comprehensive plan. And the staff is working on the logistics for this workshop. But what our input at this point is needed is to figure out when to do it, when it would work for us. Sometime between now and the end of October. So I think I'm just going to open it up to any commissioner who would like to make an opinion on this about when would be a good time. I will say, I think later is probably better because of summer vacations and the activities that surround the start of school. But beyond that, what do you think?
Just a note, I'll be in jolly old England and Ireland in September, so.
I also have vacation from October 10th to the end of October, out of country.
October 10th to the end of October?
I have a number of small trips, but no big blocks to avoid for me.
Any other schedule conflicts that you're aware of at this point?
August is tough for me, but September, October, pretty flexible.
And Brian, when you say you're gone in September, do you mean like through September 30th or?
3 weeks starting September 1.
So you'll be back the last week of September?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm looking at Director Hoffman now. What do you think about the window starting with the last week of September and extending till October 10th, so up until Commissioner Lowe is unavailable?
I think it's timely. It puts a square in that block for all the outreach, and it gets us through the concerts and Labor Day and back to school, all that, competing elements. And so that time period would work. We're certainly available. And Bill will be available during that time period too.
Is it safe to assume we're thinking of a weekday evening, or are we thinking of weekends open?
I don't know that we've thought that far, but have you, Mark?
It's one of the more major events planned. It's the primary focus, town hall level. Venue is important, timing is important, and we haven't gotten to that detail other than just to leave it as open as possible so that it can be well attended. So in my mind, whether it's a weekday or a weekend, I guess it comes down to choosing what you would like and then us going to make sure that the logistics work and that's possible. But I'm open to weekends.
One thing that it would be good to have is a venue that would allow people to participate remotely. And that probably narrows it quite a bit. And perhaps a school would be a possibility that, you know, they might have developed the capability with COVID to do things using one of their gathering spaces. So I would say let's see what is available with remote capability, and if weekends are available as well as weekdays, then weigh the pros and cons of those once we know what venues might be available to us.
One of the advantages of weekend is you don't have to make a decision between, you know, those that work all day and can attend a night meeting versus those that can attend during the day but not at night. Weekends are you know, a little bit more favorable. The hardship's going to be they're also, you know, living. So do you really want to come to a meeting on the weekend? So there's no ideal choice, but the sweet spot is what's important. When can most come and give it thought and not be rushed? And so we'll stay open to all options. 3 venues that immediately come to mind. Essentially all you need is internet in the facility room, but a school, and they've indicated they have resources for us to use. Aegis has internet and equipment, and the library. So I think we could find several options, and then I guess it's when do we need to know and when do we report back and then decide. The earlier we decide on a date and a venue and so forth, the better. Eliminates uncertainty. People can start planning. Given that time of year, I'm less worried about that aspect because it's after Labor Day. Anything before Labor Day is going to be filled with conflicts. But at that time, oh, and not Sundays because Seahawks. So, other than that, I'm
Well,
open.
Huskies are
Sometimes Thursday.
a big problem too, so.
We'll come up with options and come back at our next meeting. Is that timely?
I believe Commissioner Dantzler was talking about being able to advertise at the upcoming summer events. So that would conflict, but maybe we could advertise our website and give people, let them know where to look for information.
Another option is that, you know, it's not a public comment item, it's not controversial, it's not policy. We could work with the chair behind the scenes starting now. We don't need to wait till the next meeting and do it via email and contact and just get right at it. I would call Bill, put something on the table, go research it, work with you, and then let you know and not wait till the end of July, if you like. Thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts about the comp plan town hall meeting? And we'll move on to 8.4 and turn the floor over to Director Hoffman and Senior Planner Fitzgibbons with their reports on the middle housing grant deliverables.
I don't really have a presentation. These are the first 2 of the 4 deliverables that we are submitting to Department of Commerce. We'll have 2 more by the end of this week, which we can send out and possibly attach to the meeting notes for next time so that everybody has them. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them now or ask them later. It was just a FYI on where we are. So.
Commissioners? While you're looking at it, I'll ask a question. What is the Department of Commerce going to do with these reports?
That is a good question. And maybe Mark with his experience has a better assumption, but I assume they're going to use them to gauge the likelihood of, well, I mean, it would have been before HB 1110 to gauge the likelihood of middle housing in the jurisdictions. But, yeah.
The Commerce implements the legislature. So any policy captured in the House bill, as far as measurement or encouragement or enhancing or helping with an effort, certainly funding. The technical answer is they use this report to verify we've achieved the deliverable for the grant they've given. They've stepped forward this planning period with grants. It's not a normal course of business. There's funding this time instead of you shall. So the technical aspect is it proves we did the work. Why we did the work is the policies being enacted in Olympia. So, hurdles for housing, input, public participation, there's a variety of reasons somebody votes for a piece of legislation. And the grant is the funding. It helps us to have this material and absorb it because we're also doing the comprehensive plan update. So however it informs that policy, it has a dual purpose for us. The grant is not specific to do this work and then we send it and be done with it. We intend to use it as part of the comprehensive plan, however it applies to this community. So that was an important aspect of why we applied for the grant. We weren't looking for more work and then get funding for it. We wanted to have dual purpose and assist with the comprehensive plan update. The mechanics and requirements of it are the program, the grant deliverables, and those reflect the policies enacted by your legislature.
Questions, anyone?
I had one question, and I think maybe I was just, it's likely my confusion stems from the structure of the reports and the way they come together, but I thought it was interesting as I was looking at the review attachment C of the zoning code, which I appreciate, the need to review that for discriminatory effect. I mean, it makes sense and to see how it works with these initiatives we're considering, but there's a section of considerations here where there were a number of comments that struck me as somewhat editorial, and I was curious where those were generated. Are those feedback somebody gave? Are they staff thoughts? Are they the consultants' musings? Things like 1808, 030, why is home industry outright allowed in mixed use? Then there's a comment here, I'm not clear why we would want home industry in a mixed use setting. There's some comments like that that just seemed a little bit out of place for that type of for this type of a deliverable. And sort of maybe you could help me understand how that meshes with the overall report.
But in my opinion, it's feedback. And those involved are not necessarily those that deal with comprehensive plans or development code or even know what's in our development code, but they live in a community or they have opinions. It's filtered through the contracted community-based organization. So it's a combination of, it's that discussion. It doesn't constitute policy. It's not cut and paste into our policy document, but it helps inform a process whereby you come up with that language based on that feedback. Not having this, there'd be no feedback. You'd have to assume, or you'd have to walk through the community and find these commenters. It's a tool to get those comments to you to begin to measure those specific issues.
So these are just comments that were generated throughout the course of the process, and they're not attributable to any one particular, like the consultant or staffer. They're not in.
Are you talking about the survey that was done?
Well, I'm looking at what I took to be a review of the zoning code, an attachment C, but again, that I may be confusing myself in terms of trying to understand how the attachments are associated or incorporated into the overall report. That may be where my question ultimately goes.
This attachment C, it's basically notes on the zoning code. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the middle housing grant? No? Okay. We're now at the point where we will have additional public comment. Technically, for individuals who have not already spoken or who wish to comment on a different subject.
Is that it? That's all the discussion of the consultant presentation. Carol Simpson again from Olympus. So during the meeting, I took a couple notes about outreach and some ideas about outreach. I know there's going to be a survey generated to survey the public. It'd be great if this survey was available by Newcastle Days, so people could either fill it out at the table or take it home and think about it and then fill it out and send it in if they don't want to do things online. My other comment is I'm trying to catch up with what you've accomplished so far this year in your meeting, but I didn't find current meeting minutes. And I know the staff is stressed right now because we have turnover, and I wanted to welcome your new city clerk, Jane. And I just got to meet her in the hall, and I hope you all get to know Jane for the few times she'll be here. To catch up on those meeting minutes and approve them at your next meeting so that the public can know and look at your meeting minutes and see what you've covered. Regarding 116th and traffic there, I'm guessing that some of it's generated by the schools. And unbeknownst to us, or to me, the Renton School District changed the service area for Hazelwood Elementary School. And what you might not know is a lot of students are now coming from downtown Renton. It extends all the way down the hill and all the way into downtown Renton is where students are coming from Hazelwood Elementary School. And I've also even heard that buses have been accused of speeding on 116th, trying to get to school on time. But that's going to change. If you've been down Duval, you've seen the new school just south of Albertsons on Duval, and that's going to change the service area. There's a new map that the Renton School District adopted this year, and the service area for Hazelwood Elementary School is going to change again. That will affect traffic patterns. Now, please, I wish our City of Newcastle staff would get on the phone and talk to Renton and say, will you let us know when you change the school district boundaries that maybe we want to weigh in on these decisions that affect our school, how many students are there, and the number of students in our city during the day that our police need to protect, and traffic. So that might affect 116th and traffic around the schools greatly, that there might be a reduction in attendance at Hazelwood since Renton is adding a brand new elementary school. That'll help greatly. So if staff can show you those new maps at your next meeting, that would be terrific. And you need to get on the city council to approve your outreach plan so that you can go forward with all this. So I encourage you to do that. I will be contacting my city council members to get them to approve the outreach plan so that you and your staff can go ahead and do this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we've come to the end of our meeting because we've already talked about the planning calendar for our next meeting. We've changed our meeting to 5:30. This sign-up sheet did it go all the way down and come back, or?
Yes.
It did, okay. Well, we're going to send it around. I'll stick around after the meeting and we can add names to it. I haven't added my name to it, for example, so feel free to do that.
Commissioner Gadzik, I would encourage you to add Commissioner Quigg any place you'd like on there.
I'll put him down for the closing time. All right, thank you, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.
I'll be filling this out.